to cut off the banter, which is always very good to have at the beginning of one of these things, I think we can get started with the opening remarks by Prof. Elizabeth Lee, the CEO of Sunway Education Group Malaysia. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Peter. To all our very distinguished guests and esteemed VIP speakers with us today, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. It is indeed my honor, on behalf of the Sunway Education Group, to welcome you to today's event called AppliedHE Xchange Malaysia, New Kid on the Block, where we will be discussing the theme higher education and the new normal, economics, employability, and education sustainability. Sunway is proud to be co-hosting this event with AppliedHE Singapore. We have worked closely in the past with Ms. Mandy Mok, the founder of AppliedHE, and most of you would know that she's got a great track record in the higher education sector as Miss QS in the past. Together with her is, of course, Mr. Peter Steck, the Chief Analyst of AppliedHE. Ladies and gentlemen, in September 2015, the member states of the United Nations set an agenda to end poverty, promote peace, share wealth, and protect the planet by 2030. 17 goals, known as the UN Sustainable Development Goals, call for action from all countries, whether poor or rich, for attention to be given to people most marginalized to make sure that no one is left behind. Most importantly, the 2030 Agenda's goals, mainly goals number 4, 5, 8, 10, 11, and 17, which are education, gender equality, economy and employment, reduced inequalities, inclusive cities, and means of implementation, are closely related or intertwined with education. We at Sunway are committed to the UN SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the challenges brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, it is now more crucial than ever for us in the higher education sector to explore, improve, and pave the way forward for the future of higher education. For instance, with the closure of higher education institutions and the move to online teaching and learning, we need to impress, or rather reassess, how to better help or reach out to those without computers, laptops, or the internet. Just last year, UNICEF reported that 2/3 of the world's school-age children have no access to internet at home. The United Nations has also highlighted slow progress towards an inclusive and equitable quality education for all, and at least 500 million students around the world have no access to remote learning. We all know that the pandemic overall has impacted businesses, and the higher education sector has not been spared. Especially in our country, private education is a substantial contributor to the nation's economic growth. For example, the Malaysia Education Blueprint 2015 to 2025 for higher education estimated that international students would be contributing about 15.6 billion ringgit to the economy if 2020 target numbers were met. It would be important to note that over 60% of all international students in Malaysia are in private education institutions, be it in our schools, colleges, or universities. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected this greatly and globally, everyone is now recalibrating and recovering from the economic impact. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme today, higher education and the new normal, economics, employability, and education sustainability, was chosen for today's webinar in view of the challenges which I've just highlighted. Together, we aim to explore and find better solutions for the near future. As such, I would like to thank our esteemed speakers for making time to be with us today. Firstly, Yang Berbahagia, Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Shatta Sabran, the CEO of the Malaysian Qualifications Agency, or MQA. He is at the forefront of higher education innovation, namely by championing micro-credentials, alternative assessments in light of the COVID-19, as well as APEL, or accreditation of prior experiential learning, and of course, lifelong education. I trust that Professor Shatta will inspire us in his speech shortly. We have only one very important panel, and we are so honored to have with us on this panel, Professor Datuk Wira, Dr. Raha Abdurrahim, the Vice Chancellor of the University Technical Malaysia Melaka, one of Malaysia's foremost technical universities. She will provide insights on the very important field of vocation and skill. We were also supposed to have with us Professor Dr. Muhammad Ekwan Haji Toriman from the National University of Malaysia, or University Kebangsaan Malaysia, a top public research university at the forefront of cutting-edge research. But alas, he has to attend to a family emergency, and we truly wish him and his family well. There's also my dear friend, Datuk Parmjit Singh, President of the Malaysian Association of Private Colleges and Universities, and he's also the CEO and founder of the Asia Pacific University, which is well known for its technology programs, and they have an amazingly diverse student population with many international students from around the world. From the United Kingdom, we have Professor Dr. Moritz van Ruingen, who has insights from Europe. Thank you for joining us, Prof. And he will be sharing his unique views on the happenings abroad. And last but not least, we are thrilled to have Sunway University's very own Professor Popima, our president, who has kindly agreed to moderate this informative session. Ladies and gentlemen, the overall post-COVID-19 impact on education is still unfolding. While a cause for concern, we must nevertheless remember that all education stakeholders, from governments to private sector, communities, schools, and institutions of higher learning, must continue to fight the good fight to ensure that no one is indeed left behind. Hopefully, in Malaysia, with the National Recovery Plan and the rapid ramp up of the national vaccination program, we can soon move on to the next phase of recovery, and hopefully students will be able to regain some semblance of a normal higher education experience. Our esteemed speakers have had much experience in the past year in dealing with the challenges of COVID-19. I trust that today's session will be an enlightening one for all who are tuning in. I'm definitely so looking forward to hearing everyone. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us today, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much for those opening words, Elizabeth. Now over to the CEO of AppliedHE, Ms. Van die Mock.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the AppliedHE Launch Exchange for Malaysia. It's great to be back again, although virtually, and to see so many old friends. We have been very active organizing launch events like this for countries around the world, from Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Indonesia to the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, Taiwan, the Philippines, Vietnam, with Russia, South Africa, Korea, Japan, and China in the pipeline. The AppliedHE Exchange is an opportunity for us to give you a flavor of what AppliedHE has to offer, and in exchange to better understand the issues that you are facing in Malaysia. I'm very grateful to our host, Sunway University, especially Professor Elizabeth Lee, CEO of Sunway Education Group, and her awesome team. Thank you all for your great support. Appreciation also to the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Shatta Sebran, CEO of Malaysian Qualifications Agency, MQA Malaysia, and to our group of panelists, Professor Maurits van Rooyen, CEO of Global University Systems and Rector of University of Europe for Applied Sciences, Germany, Professor Datuk Wira Dr. Raha Abdurrahim, Vice Chancellor, University Technical Malaysia, Malacca, UTEM, Datuk Hamjit Singh, co-founder and CEO of the APIIT Education Group, and to our moderator, Professor Sibran Popima, President of Sunway University. And finally, thanks to you, the audience from across Malaysia and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us today. I created and launched AppliedHE in January of 2020 after an almost 20-year career at QS, with the aim of creating an alternative solution in ranking, rating, and branding that better serves the need of more learning and employability-focused applied universities, which I believe are dominant in the ASEAN region, in fact, all over the world. At the same time, the solutions AppliedHE offers are compatible with other rankings out there. It is not an either-or choice. AppliedHE can help you with international branding and marketing, student recruitment, benchmarking, and a range of other solutions. Because AppliedHE is the new kid on the block, we are nimbler, hungrier, and more sensitive to your needs, and ready with a whole suite of exciting and innovative services. At the same time, my team, who are also veterans from QS, and I are highly experienced in this sector. So we have an unparalleled track record that speaks for itself. And without further ado, let's get started. We have produced AppliedHE as a fresh, modern, and totally relevant concept in benchmarking and branding of higher education institutions, offering solutions that's focused on employability and learning. As mentioned, AppliedHE was launched on 1st of January of 2020. So we're still very young, just a year and a half old. And now you have an alternative choice from what is currently available in the market. A globally oriented higher education evaluation and branding company that is rooted in Asia and which aims to positively disrupt the global higher education sector. You will find that our tagline for the company aptly amplifies that: skills and job ready, future proof. And our strength lies in reaching out not only to academics, but also include stakeholders from industry, civil society, government, students, parents, alumni, faculty, basically everybody. I'll introduce the company, AppliedHE, and all our initiatives, from evaluation tools, that is the set of ratings, to building your global reputation and networking solutions, and of course, our special events and special projects. All these creative strategies will help your institution achieve not only global, but also local visibility and branding with all your stakeholders quickly and cost effectively. AppliedHE is the new brand for all skills-based employment-focused education, and our mission is designed to help universities to communicate with your stakeholders, engage with your international and local peers, industry, and government, brand your institution worldwide, including improving in the rankings. And our vision is to be the dominant brand that empowers employability and lifelong learning. I've grouped the initiatives into 4 segments. Let's start with evaluation tools. When we first started the company in January 2020, we only had one product, and that is the job ready rating. Today, I'm pleased to say AppliedHE has 3 rating systems. We have the all-round job ready rating system to evaluate the quality of teaching and learning and employability of your graduates. An English ready rating to evaluate the quality of English language as a medium of instruction in non-English speaking countries. And it is also a great marketing tool for the recruitment of international students as well. And the online ready rating, which helps your institution benchmark and promote its online programs and courses. This set of ratings not only serve as benchmarking tools, but they're also effective and affordable marketing tools. They can benchmark your institution's performance for quality improvement, as our criteria are relevant and implementation is relatively quick. And it is not just a rating per se, it also provides market intelligence so that you can make informed decisions and strategies without having to go for expensive market consultancies. As a marketing tool, it can quickly communicate to your stakeholders your institution's excellence and quality. And the fact that you're affiliated with the AppliedHE brand also shows that you are job and skills ready, future-proof. Basically, the ratings is a great tool to meet your institution's quest for global branding and excellence. So the AppliedHE Job Ready rating is so versatile that it can be applied to not only universities, but also suitable for professional institutions. And by professional, we mean the vocational, TVETs, polytechnics, and colleges. It's also suitable for business schools and online education. The Job Ready rating is aimed at evaluating professional education such as engineering, nursing, medicine, law, accounting, art and design, media, basically any program that involves industry collaboration. And we do it differently. Here's the new perspective, the creative twist. We do not do a rating of your institution per se. We rate your institution based on your programs by employment cluster. This means we can now bring a spotlight to your every program, regardless of whether it is big or small. And currently there is no marketing tool in the market to help you achieve this. Take, for example, the employment cluster, healthcare. The mainstream subjects that fall under healthcare are your medicine, dentistry, nursing, etc. But what about the smaller ones like radiology, physiotherapy, and even hospital administration? Now with the AppliedHE Job Ready Ratings methodology, we can bring the global spotlight to your every program, whether it's big or small. This is the employment cluster adapted from the International Standard Industrial Classification. There are 22 of them, and it covers all sectors of the economy. And this list is growing daily because the world is changing so fast that there are many jobs out there today that never existed in the past. Jobs like these, e-commerce, gaming, coding, social media marketing, influencer, blogger, just to name a few, these are not even proper words in the past, but today they are reputable and very much sought after jobs. And our unique approach to rating by employment clusters can accommodate these new jobs and the future economy. You'll note that many of our criteria overlaps with the goals of the SDG. And our rating is done primarily by surveys to your stakeholders like your students, faculty, employers, and alumni. So what this means is you will have access to market intelligence of your key stakeholders. And these information are very relevant to your strategies, future plans, internal decision-making, KPIs, etc. And it is market intelligence that you do not have to pay a hefty sum for, as it comes as part of the ratings. This is all part of our effort to help you stretch your budget as much as possible. And once rated, you will be presented with the AppliedHE Job Ready Ratings badge, and you can use it on all your marketing materials. The ratings are awarded by employment cluster, and the country of origin is clearly stated so that stakeholders are clear on the market that you serve. This is very important as employment and jobs differ in each country. There are 3 levels that you can score: job ready with merit, and the highest is job ready with distinction. And the ratings badges are valid for 3 years. You'll also receive a certificate listing the score and all the evaluated programs. So this means even your smallest program will be able to share the global limelight. The job ready ratings will help to associate your institution with quality of teaching and learning and employability of your graduates. I won't go into the English ready ratings as most of your programs are taught in English. However, I'm pleased to say that we have completed the pilot with universities from Vietnam, Taiwan, and Indonesia. The third rating. In today's environment, online degrees are an increasingly appealing alternative to traditional on-campus programs. Online learning is here to stay, and even if things go back to normal, it won't be the normal that we know, but the new normal, which is why we need to be ahead of the curve now, as there is a huge demand for online courses. The future is going to be a hybrid mix of online and physical attendance, and the earlier we're ready for it, the better. The benefits of being online ready rated are many. First, it enables your institution to have a global benchmark and understand better how others' online programs are performing. It's also a great marketing and branding tool to attract not only domestic, but also international students, as it helps to demonstrate your institution's online ready learning to a global audience. And with this rating, you can understand your stakeholders' perceptions of the different aspects of online learning so that you can create relevant strategies to meet their needs. Once rated, you'll receive a certificate and a badge to let your stakeholders know that your institution is online ready. So now we come to the second group of initiatives, and that's our strategies for global reputation and networking. We recently launched Future in January. Future is the world's first professional networking platform for the higher education sector. We have physical and virtual events under the brand of Xchange, and we also have an e-newswire called Extra, now indexed by Google News. Future was launched on the 20th of January this year. It is the world's first professional networking platform, specially designed for the higher education sector. And Future aims to connect everyone from high school to professional career to lifelong learning for the 3 E's: education, employment, and everything in between. These are the most important career milestones in life, from the moment you're a high school student to being a student in higher education, to being a successful graduate, employer, entrepreneur, or even an alumni donor. And for ease of use, Future is just like any other social media. The difference is Future provides all the relevant stuff that is important to the higher education sector. Stuff like news and information on universities, courses, scholarships, internships, research collaboration, student and faculty exchanges, resumes, jobs, industry news, lifelong learning, alumni engagement and management, and networking at all stages of your life. In short, eventually, Future will include the entire higher education and career experience from leaving high school to retirement. So think of Future as your passport for life. It's free, and it is the only professional networking platform you'll ever need. So please sign up for Future and encourage your friends and peers to sign up too. The new feature that we are launching soon in Future is the Alumni Engagement and Management Service. Institutions of higher learning in many parts of the world have long underestimated the value of their alumni network. And we all know that investing in alumni relations can provide a high return on investment for an institution. A strong alumni engagement strategy is not built overnight, but fortunately, we can help your institution get started. As you can see from my slide here, there is a whole host of stuff that we can help you with your alumni engagement and management. And you can even design and customize your page on Future to reflect your institution's branding, just like the demo NTU Singapore here. You can read all the text later, as the slides will be provided to you after this webinar. I just want to draw your attention to the 2 points in bold, and that is Future is currently globally accessible and Facebook is not accessible in China. And the second point is this is a free service, so please do take advantage of it. And if you would like to learn more about how AppliedHE can help you with your alumni engagement and management, please join our coming webinar on the 10th of August. That's next Wednesday. We have invited one speaker from every continent to share with you how and what their university is doing for alumni engagement and management. So we have a speaker from Asia, Middle East, Africa, America, and the UK. And the moderator is the ever popular Professor Popular from Sunway University. Hope to see all of you online next Wednesday on the 10th of August. at 8 p.m. Malaysia time. Another strategy for global branding is, of course, our physical events, but they need to be on hold now. To give you a quick introduction of our physical events, which also go by the brand Xchange, you can host an Xchange event by employment cluster or by subject, or you can host an Xchange by region, or you can even drill down to a specific country, example, Xchange Malaysia. Depending on your priorities, we can organize events to suit you, and these events are an effective strategy for global branding and networking, and by God's will, we hope to resume in 2022. But for now, since we can't travel because of COVID, so instead of sitting around and feeling sorry for yourselves, we started a series of Squaring the Circle debate webinars since last year. It was fun, it was provocative, very refreshing, and I believe we were the most active in the online space with one webinar every month. Another regular webinar that is alternating with Squaring the Circle debate is the Fireside Chat. So for the rest of this year, we will have a webinar every first Wednesday of the month with Fireside Chats and Squaring the Circle debate alternating every other month all the way to December of 2021. Always on a Wednesday evening, always at 8 p.m. Singapore or Malaysia time. So please keep your monthly first Wednesday nights free. In addition to the regular monthly webinars, we also organize bespoke webinars according to clients' topic of interest. So do check with us if you would like us to organize a webinar with your preferred theme. And we have our e-newsletter, Extra Extra, again, unique to AppliedHE. Here, we will help you to promote your institutional news on the global stage. And this is yet another complimentary service. All you have to do is send us your news that are extraordinary, and we will publish and promote it across all our marketing platforms to your targeted global audience. In the short space of time since our launch, we're now indexed by Google News. So this means our readership is growing rapidly. Therefore, this is a great and targeted medium to showcase stories from your institution to the world, and it's free, no charge at all. Next, we come to special events, our third group of initiatives, and the bite-sized online internship is under our special events, and we're currently running a pilot. This new initiative is the first of its kind, and it involves 3 groups of important stakeholders. They are your students, your university, and the employers. For students, aside from being able to learn, share ideas and knowledge, they will have the opportunity to build a global network while still in school. They will also build valuable employability skills and connect with several potential employers or industries before deciding on what they really want as a career. Plus, they will have the opportunity to market themselves to prospective employers for permanent employment. For institutions who participate in this bite-sized internship, they will enhance the students' uni experience with this entrepreneurship experience by exposing their students to an international online environment and connect them to prospective international employers. And for sure, it would definitely enhance and improve university industry experience as well. And for the employers, they will have global access to a diverse talent pool of top talent and original ideas. They will also have the opportunity to develop relationships with innovative university partners and the opportunity to brand themselves to this group of prospective and potential employees. So you can see this new service is very innovative and creative and will definitely bring internships to a new level. Also under special events is the AppliedHE Fireside Chat with students. This is a unique webinar format that connects students to international employers, hence allowing students to gain insight into the recruitment process and employer expectations, while providing employers with an opportunity to connect with talented students. A true global dialogue on employability, AppliedHE Fireside Chat with students is a highly visible presentation of an institution's commitment to ensuring its students' international employability. And our fourth group of initiatives, they're namely rankings. In addition to launching Future, we also launched the Rankometer in January, a new ranking that is based on one single and transparent benchmark. Now, there has been a huge proliferation of university rankings in recent years. Students, parents, and even employers simply don't know where to look for a reliable comparison of universities. With the Rankometer, we've solved that problem by providing a transparent and reliable measure of university quality. To be precise, the Rankometer is a composite ranking of the world's 5 most influential world university rankings. Please look out for Rankometer 2.0 in the first quarter of next year for some very interesting results. So with the launch of the Rankometer, we had really good media coverage. And what this means is it adds credibility to the new kid, that's us, AppliedHE, as we've had many inquiries after. So this means if you're associated with the AppliedHE brand, your branding and global visibility will be greatly enhanced too. And with the recent success and excitement from the launch of the Rankometer, plans to launch more important and relevant rankings are in the pipeline. We're currently looking at launching the AppliedHE private university ranking by region, and we're launching the private university ranking for ASEAN first, with Middle East in the pipeline. So we will soon be reaching out to private universities across Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. Another very unique ranking to look out for are the national rankings. We have plans to produce a national ranking for both the private and public universities in each individual country. Discussions with many countries are already in motion. What are the national rankings? Well, they are a pair of national rankings of the country's private and public universities. Over my almost 2 decades with my ex-company, we've heard so many complaints that the current rankings are not fair because they're putting such heavy emphasis on international reputation and research, etc. While they are important, these criteria are less relevant to your students and mission, where the key concern is your students getting a job. So how can your institution succeed when the rules don't fit? So sponsoring and supporting the AppliedHE national rankings is your chance to rewrite the rules of the game in terms of university rankings. The national rankings will help to attract and nurture the nation's best talent, taking employability to the next level. So now you can take this opportunity to change the narrative, change the discussion. You can be the rule maker and not the rule taker. We are looking for a local supporting partner, so please contact us if you are interested. This is my second last slide, and I would like to leave you with a list of the first of its kind from AppliedHE. Future, the world's first professional networking platform, specially created for the higher education sector. Alumni engagement and management service. Bite-sized online internship and fireside chat for students. And for rankings, we have the AppliedHE Rankometer for world university rankings, the AppliedHE private and public university rankings by country for the national rankings, and the AppliedHE private and public university rankings by region. And this is my last slide, which gives you an overview of all the products and services that AppliedHE have created in the short space of time since our inception. We are indeed the new kid on the block, and as mentioned in my opening, we are nimbler, hungrier, and more sensitive to your needs. AppliedHE can help you with international branding and marketing, student recruitment, benchmarking, and a range of other solutions locally, that is global and local. So I hope you are as excited as we are creating all these new and innovative strategies for you. Please write to us if you have any questions or would like more information or even requests for demos. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mandy, for that presentation. We now go to the special remarks delivered by Malaysia's very own CEO of the Malaysian Qualifications Agency, Professor Dato Muhammad Shatar Sabran. The floor is yours, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Peter. Thank you very much for Mandy, such a wonderful and great speech. Really learned a lot. I know we have met several times, but I think now you are talking on behalf of a different platform. But it's a really good topic. I think we can share at least somehow whatever you have said in your presentation, match some of the items that I'm going to share after this. But thank you also from Elizabeth for giving me the opportunities to share some of my ideas on behalf of MQA Malaysia. And our good friend Dato Parmit Singh, I have seen there. And Dr. Raha from UNITEN, and all the presenters panels and participants and audience from all over the world. Okay, today I was being given the chance to share the thought from MQA under the title of AppliedHE Malaysia Exchange, the new kid on the block. But for the purpose of my presentation today, I'm going to focus only two things. Employability and education sustainability, the Malaysian perspective. And of course, I will not focusing much on the economic perspective, because I think these two agenda are the one that's most significant for us to think about it. And whatever being said by Ms. Mandy just now somehow is relevant for us to discuss and to think about it. Okay, prior to my point and my argument about this topic, about this employability and education sustainability, allow me to share a little bit briefly about MQA. I mean, maybe some of you might know I just joined MQA for the last 4 months. Before that, when I met Mandy somewhere sometime in Taiwan and Korea, I was together with UPSI, University Pendidikan Sultan Idris, until last February when I was being requested by the Minister of Higher Education to lead MQA. So MQA is the sole body in Malaysia to ensure the quality of higher education, both private and public universities, so that our quality somehow is at par with other institutions in the world. So our agenda not only to be recognized locally, but also we need to go beyond Malaysia at the international, global level. So that is my challenge for the next 3 years. And I hope with the help of everybody, especially using this platform, I'm sure we can reach to that destination. Okay, then we have like a few functions of MQA. Of course, we have several functions, but for the purpose of today, I just want to share a little bit. So one of the most important agenda or function of MQA is to implement MQS as a reference point for Malaysian qualification. And under MQF, we have several lists of certificates, diploma, degrees, masters, and PhD. And those who are not listed within our MQF, they're not going to be recognized. So that's why it's so significant for students out there. If they are looking for higher education in this country, especially, they need to refer to MQF so that all the investment that they have put in their education is not going to be waste. And we also to accredit courses that fulfill the set criteria and standards. So all the universities, higher education institutions which are going to offer any new courses, they have to go through MQA to ensure the courses or the program that they're going to offer to the public will reach certain quality, and the most important thing, that will be accepted, especially by the government department whenever they are looking for a job later on. And the rest, I think you could read from our website, but these are the most important things. Okay. The next one is the real thought that I want to share today with the rest of the audience. Okay, this is how the public see us as higher education institution. Okay, this is how the public looking at UKM, UPM, and the rest of the university in this country, both public and private, and also together with other institutions from all over the world. Okay, as Ms. Mandy was saying, I mean, before this, people always use ranking to identify whether your higher education institution is good or not, or know whether you are number 1, number 2, the top 100, whatever. But as far as the public is concerned, especially in this country, Malaysia, if your higher education institution is able to produce or to ensure every single graduate who are leaving your institution get a job, and the public will say your institution is the good one. It doesn't matter if you are the top 1% of ranking in the world, but most of your graduates are not able to get a job, and the public not even bother to see that ranking anymore. I think that's why I'm really, really happy and pleased to hear when Mandy was saying, ready, get the job ready is one of the criteria that to be included in the future ranking. So I think by having that ranking in the system, I'm sure the public will be eager to see whoever able to produce the higher graduate employability that will be demanded by the society to send the kid. I mean, I know ranking that we have now is significant, but if we fail to ensure a job after they graduate, that is not going to give any meaning to them. I mean, I'm sure as a parent, we want to invest something to our kid, but of course, all the investment, we are expecting something in return, and the return must be something good. So therefore, it's very important for us to think about it. From now on, higher education institution is no longer to be measured based on the quality of the academic performance only, but at the same time, I think it's high time for us to see in terms of graduate employability. As far as Malaysia is concerned, we have been struggling so hard to ensure graduate employability among our public and private institutions to go as high as possible. And of course, if you compare between the public and the private university in this country, we will see two different percentage about graduate employability. So again, in this slide, graduate employability is very significant for the future perception of the universities, whether public or private. Okay, but again, we also need to understand, and nowadays, I'm not sure what's happening all over the world, but as far as Malaysia is concerned, somehow something goes wrong with the graduate employability. People always like to blame the higher education institution. Somehow they believe that higher education institution is the sole factor that will contribute to graduate employability, whether it's going up or going down. But of course, we also need to understand there are so many factors that are affecting GE in this country or even in the world. Number one is economic stability. So if you have so good program, let's say you are offering the best program in the world, but the economic situation in your country is not stable, then it's definitely going to affect GE in your country. And of course, that's not including the political stability. I just purposely not to include them, but somehow politics is also playing a significant role to ensure graduate employability to go up or to go down. Plus demand and supply of the programs, of the courses that we are offering. That's why I think in the later slide, we're going to discuss about this, and resources and facilities. But of course, between this demand and supply and resources, facilities and manpower, somehow is going to be within control among the IPT, among the public and private university. But somehow the economic stability is something like beyond our control, but is definitely going to affect our graduate employability. Okay, so therefore, my suggestions on behalf of MQA Malaysia, we would really encourage higher education institutions to think ahead. We need to think 10, 15, 20 years ahead. So we cannot just think what's happening tomorrow or next week. So that's why we are proposing, in order to allow us thinking 10, 15, 20 years ahead, we need to have all these 4 criteria that I have shared in my slide. Of course, adapting to VUCA world, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That's what Ms. Mandy was saying. All the jobs that are going to be created in the future were never been thought before. In this world, we never thought about the job, talking about cyber, we're talking about digital for the last 10, 15 years. But now they are in demand. But of course, we cannot stop there. We need to think far away ahead. Like, for example, when pandemic, COVID-19 hit the world, nobody thought about it. But I do know some countries, they were predicted things like this might happen. And therefore, they're working so hard to produce vaccine and things like that. So again, as a higher education institution, we have to be involved in this VUCA thing so that we are ready for whatever happening in the future. And of course, we have to act as a problem solver. So we need to be proactive instead of reactive. For example, nowadays when pandemic COVID-19 is happening every day, cases is going to go up and so on. Like today, the cases in this country are reaching about 20,000. So as a public university or private university or higher educations, what are we offering to the public when we are dealing with this issue? So most of us are taking like quiet, wait and see. But the publics, they are expecting us something, come up with something so that they can feel comfortable to see or to face the uncertainty in this country and also in the world. And of course, be a leader, not followers. So I think at this particular point, congratulations again to Mandy for coming up with this new scheme, new system of ranking. So normally, sorry for me to say, people in this region, especially, we always refer to the West in almost everything. Why don't, from now on, we expect people looking at us? Look to the West. To the East, no longer to the West. So if we want to be a leader, we have to come up with something so that all the people in this world looking at us. So when Mandy came up with this new ranking about job ready rating, I'm sure people from all over the world, when they want to see the quality of the university of higher education in the future, they will come to the East instead we come to the West. So if you want to be leaders, we have to be ready for this. We have to be like having all this VUCA, and I'm sure we can do that. And of course, predict future problem in order to be referred. So those are the things. So we don't wait until the problem comes. Then we need to make a prediction, 10, 15, and 20 years and so on. And the last few slides that I'm going to share with you, the new era of MQA. And of course, MQA has been here for so many years, since 2007 that we have been established. But now it's 2020, 21. And of course, I think under my leadership and my team, we try to bring the new era of MQA. So though the thing that we are going to share today under the new era of MQA, so we are going to act as facilitator. We are not the police, we're not the enforcer, we are the facilitator. So we're going to do a lot of engagement instead of enforcement. So of course, COVID is the one that having a problem that somehow hinder from making this engagement. So our intention, our plan is to have a physical engagement. We're going to visit all the higher education institutions in this country to understand more about them, and therefore we're going to change our role. Instead of enforcing certain rule, we would like to be the facilitator and we would like to engage them more. And also we provide, as what Prof. Elizabeth was saying at the beginning, we are now providing a more flexible education approach, and we have so many products that we have now, but the one that are so popular at this particular time is about APPEL, accreditation prior experiential learning. We have 3 types of APPEL, A, C, and Q at this particular time. And of course, we are in the pipeline is micro-credential. We do have that one, but we're coming up with a standard guideline for micro-credential to be implemented in this country in a very soon. So as far as APPEL is concerned, we have 3. Briefly, APPEL-A, we are using the previous experiential learning that they have gone through in order to be used for admission purposes. I know a lot of people in this country and in the world that they did not receive a proper education, but they have a tremendous working experience, both formal and informal, and those can be used, can be counted, can be measured so that they can be used as the entry point to any program in the university, both private and public university. APPEL-C is for credit transfer. So all the experience that I have before for the last 10, 15, 20 years, whatever that one is, I can change into credit hours. up to the maximum 30% of the program that being offered by higher education. And the latest product in terms of APPEL was AppliedHE, where we award straight away a certificate, diploma, a degree, master, PhD, depending on the time frame, time spent in the working experience. If you are having about 10 years experience of working related field, you might be given a diploma, 15 years a degree, 20 years masters, and 25 years for doctorate program. So of course, before you being awarded that one, you need to go to certain assessment like a portfolio, challenge test, and of course you need to come up with a milestone project, things like that. So we are hoping having this AppliedHE, C and Q, somehow we are able to enhance the society to further the education under the lifelong learning. So with that, Mr. Peter, thank you very much. I'm ready for any Q&A, if any.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I think there is a lot of time for comments a bit later as well, also during the panel discussion. I see that there's a very lively chat going on with many comments and many echoing the comments that you just made. But I think there's no immediate questions right now. So what I suggest is that we go to the panel, which is being chaired by Professor Poppema.
Okay. I think all of us are there. I want to do a very short introduction again of our three panel members. So Professor Datuk Bira Dr. Raha Abderrahim, the first female Vice Chancellor of the Universidad Technical Malaysia Malacca. This is one of the 5 technical public universities in Malaysia. And she has a unique perspective because she is also a former director of the Ministry of Higher Education, and in that period overseeing, amongst others, university rankings, but also the large research grants and the fundamental research grants. Then we have Datuk Dr. Pamit Singh. He's the CEO of MAPCO, the Malaysian Association of Private Colleges and Universities, which is representing private higher education institutions in Malaysia. And of course, the goal of that is to convey the expectation and interest of the private sector to government and to support a higher education ecosystem. I think it's worthwhile to know that 60% of all higher education institution students in Malaysia are in private institutions. But Dr. Pamit Singh is also the CEO and founder of Asia Pacific University, which is a particularly technology-focused private university. And our third speaker is Professor Maurits van Rooyen. He is the Chief Academic Officer of Global University Systems and also Director of the University of Europe for Applied Sciences, Germany. He is an international Dutchman. He is trained as a socioeconomic historian and geographer, and previously he was rector and CEO of London School of Finance and Business, and he has a wealth of experience in teaching at institutions in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, United States, Asia, and Australia. So he brings a truly international perspective to this. I have a couple of questions that I hope all of the 3 panel members will be able to answer. And, you know, we cannot avoid to start with the COVID-19 question, which is how has COVID-19 impacted the teaching and learning process in your institution? And were you able to shift? And were you able to shift quick enough? And I'd like to start out with Datuk Bira.
Hello, Assalamualaikum, and very good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Prof. Poppema for the nice introduction just now. of course, to Prof. Elizabeth for the invitation, all esteemed speakers and also panelists. Okay, how did we, okay, my name is Raha and I'm from the University Technical Malaysia, Malacca. So we are actually a public university situated in Malacca that is not that far away from KL actually. And I would like to say that we are actually in the historical state of Malacca. Now, how do we, perhaps the word may be embrace. How do we embrace COVID in a sense that whatever teaching and learning processes that we have to provide to the students have definitely been challenged, especially UTEM is TVET. It's a higher TVET university, one of the four technical universities in Malaysia. So the biggest challenge is that we still have to follow the rules and regulations of MQA and also the professional bodies, whereby we need to fulfill the requirements. But Alhamdulillah, I must say that we have shifted quite nicely. Especially, I would like just to share with you, apart from the teaching and learning, where we have to give very quick sharing with our lecturers on how to utilize, not to how to utilize computer, but the different platforms that has to be built and developed in order for us to make sure that whatever that we need to share with the students get to the students. But Alhamdulillah, actually, just to share, I'm very proud of this. In the last very recent final exams, we managed to have like 100% online examination. And that is something that, totally is not the new norm, but it's the next normal. I think that's a new word that they're using now. Instead of talking about the new normal, it's a next normal. So we even had our lecturers, conduct the examinations from home, because everybody has to work from home, because this was during the MCO. So I think this is something that I would like to share. And yes, it is a big challenge for us. COVID has really thrown the curveball to everybody. And I think the best of our capability, we try to together we try to overcome these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. And Parmit, what about your institution?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, first of all. I can't avoid but just say a few words about what Mandy had presented and what was just presented by Dr. Mohammad Sattar. I mean, that is my pet area, employability. I never thought that the university that's producing unemployed graduates should pride themselves on anything apart from making sure that everybody who graduates is employable. So thank you, Mandy, for coming up with this. I think that's going to be a lot better, a lot more representative. I think if there are parents in the audience, they will agree that at the end of the day, they invest in their children's education with certain aspirations in mind. They want them to do something. And the kids themselves to come into university, they have their aspirations to become somebody. And if that's not what universities deliver, I know they argue against it as to what the meaning of a university is, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we've taken somebody's peace. We've also taken 3 or 4 years of his life who's spent on campus. And if employment is not delivered, I believe that's a crime. It should not happen. So thank you, Mandy, for that. And thank you, Dr. Mohammad Sattar. I'm so happy that MQA is helmed by you, and I think we can move along a lot more meaningfully, with MQA, recognizing that employability is important. Thank you, guys. So that's a pretty joyous start. Okay, in terms of COVID, we were fortunate in APU particularly, because we were already quite deep in digital transformation to ensure that tools and techniques be available across the university to complement face-to-face learning. By sheer chance, it's not that we expected disasters to come along, but we were, being a technology university, we were already on that path of trying to introduce hybrid nature of lectures. We also thought that in the long term, that's the way the new generation of kids coming on to university education. So we already had learning management systems in place. Fortunately, everybody was very conversant with it. And we also had the collaborative tools and the IT infrastructure that was re-architectured with the applications and learning resources that were moved to cloud to ensure high availability, scalability, and performance. So, I mean, like I said right in the beginning, we were just absolutely fortunate. We did not expect to see a shutdown happen fast. So, but we also created virtual desktop infrastructure, which enables staff and students to access laboratory resources from their homes. That's very important, particularly in our engineering disciplines and also cutting across all our technology disciplines. We also expanded, obviously, on the library resources. So it was largely and relatively pretty seamless to online learning. It cannot be denied that there were issues, and they were mainly related to students' access to bandwidth, and also because about 50% of our students are international, and when the lockdowns started happening, we encouraged them to go back to their families because that's the kindest thing to do. So there were time zone differences because we were trying to run lectures online based on Malaysian timing, but you know, for some of them it was 3 or 4 in the morning. So there were differences of that sort, and of course, bandwidth was. We considered that exciting to be adapting to new learning modes for both students and staff. But at the same time, we are now getting a little concerned that this has gone on for too long. And so what's important now is put in concerted efforts at student engagement and also staff engagement, because it's become a little bit more tiresome than it should have been. So the excitement of using technology is behind us now, but we really hope that we go back to some normality quite soon. So the initial challenge in adapting and preparedness for faculty moving from traditional face-to-face digital learning mode was mitigated to some extent by intense training and education. I remember the first weekend when the lockdown was announced, we went in pretty intense training. And then we had a support team and also a group of people called digital champions about problems that might be arising every now and then. So I would say that there will be a lot more challenges if this goes on a lot more, because although we have gone on alternative assessments, there are issues related to that. But I would also like to compliment MQA for very, very quickly coming up with allowing us run the courses online, because as traditional universities, we were not licensed to do it. They've extended the approval to the end of the year, and of course now we look forward to the provisions being changed so that we can accommodate flexibility going forward. We are also very grateful that alternative assessments were accepted, not only by MQA and MOHE, but also by a number of professional bodies. Some were stickier than others. But other than that, I think we've got used to operating our universities in pretty flexible modes. We've become very resilient. There's a lot of agility in the staff and university administration to be able to face up with varying situations and conditions. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. And perhaps Professor van Rooyen from the European perspective, similar, or do you see great differences between the impact in Europe and here in Asia?
You're on mute, Prof.
I'm on mute.
I owe you money for that one. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, it's getting tiring to repeat it all the time, but we still forget it nowadays. So absolutely happy to give a European perspective, Sipan. But I do want to stress, as you said in your introduction, my perspective is very much global. I do not really believe that higher education is immune to globalization, and this is what I keep on saying, and I know you, Sipan, have exactly the same view. Higher education is not immune to globalization. It should embrace it. In fact, it should lead it. And it's that thinking which launched 10 years ago, the first attempt to create a global higher education system, obviously in the private sector. And we now operate something like 20 plus universities around the world, literally around the world, from Canada to Singapore, Hong Kong, etc. And then a similar number of affiliates remain in the private sector. So our thinking is really global, not just European. And the other thing is, our thinking is very much about innovation. And I completely agree with the words Dr. Shatta said earlier about the use of APEL, and we have to become much more innovative to that. But also when it comes to innovation is the way we teach. And when we say we're all student-centric, we sometimes forget that student-centric means we should give the students a choice how they want to learn. And that's what we have been practicing in our institutions, and especially in, for instance, institutions like University of Law in the UK and Arden University in the UK. Well, basically the student decides whether they want to come on campus, whether they want to follow lectures online, whether they want to follow it synchronous or asynchronous. So totally up to them. We do not tell them how to learn. They themselves decide how they want to learn. And that means that when COVID happened, it had zero impact. They were COVID-proof, those institutions. They automatically, students just said, okay, we cannot go to campus, but it doesn't matter. We continue learning in a different way. And it's also interesting to see that those students universities have been rewarded for that. So institutions like Arden University have seen enrollment going up with something like 60% in the last year. University of Law, enrollment going up almost 50%. Huge increases because students actually say, hey, those are institutions which offer an education which is truly student-centric. They allow me to learn the way I want to learn, but also they are prepared when things happen. And that's, of course, a model we have used for all of institutions all over the world, not just in Europe. So we can see some universities have seen it as a great opportunity, COVID. So in a bizarre way, COVID has been a good time for us as global university systems. Other universities have really struggled to make that transition to teaching by Teams and Zoom, etc. And so it's in Europe, in that sense, the same picture as everywhere in the world. You got universities which have been really fast adapting, were already prepared, see the big opportunity which COVID presented, and you are universities which are unfortunately very slow in adjusting to the new reality of COVID.
Thank you. I cannot resist saying a little bit about employment as well, because important as it is, I don't quite like the word employment, because employment sort of insinuates that you have to find employment. And what I believe that it is very important in teaching our students is that they will also be prepared to create their own employment. In other words, not to become employees, but to become employers themselves. I think that's very important. So entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial attitude, I think, is very important. So it's not just whether we produce people that fit into the jobs of the day or even the jobs of tomorrow. They have to be able to create jobs. If it comes to the lessons we have learned from this period, and I think we heard a few already, and I think that Pramit Singh already said that, it's been good. We've learned a lot. We've learned how we can use all sorts of methods for teaching that previously we could have done, but frequently didn't do it. But we've also found out that our students really long for coming back to campus, really long to see each other. Our staff exactly the same. So how are you looking at this at your university, Provira?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, I just received a message the other day from a couple of students who told us that, they really miss campus life and they're really looking forward to come back in to meet up with their friends, and believe me or not, to meet up with their lecturers even. They must be that, that bored at home, that they're even missing their lecturers. You never hear of that during the non-COVID situation. I guess in a way, it is something that we nothing much that we can do, because we have to adhere to the rules and regulations that's been given out by our MKN and also our Ministry of Health. And I believe that whatever advice that they give will be the best for the students and also for the universities and also higher learning institutions. However, what we have done is we have encouraged, we're still encouraging our student affairs department, the faculty members to come up with games and some activities which are online, whereby they get to actually meet up with their students online. This is apart from on top of the normal lectures, but games and I think what has happened is that the lecturers and the staff has been quite innovative and are quite successful in terms of getting the participation of students. And in this way, we feel that the students are at least they are together. Sometimes they group together. We make games whereby they have to be in groups. So these are some of the things that I think is important, so that the students don't totally lose touch with the universities, and that the lecturers are also still in touch with their students. So this is on top of, again, I would like to reiterate, the online lectures that they have to give and share. So in a way, that's it can be done that way probably.
And a specific question for your university that's very much focused on technology. How much difficulty have you had with these programs? Because a lot of it must have been practical work for the students, and how did you cope with that during this period?
Popema, let's hope that it doesn't extend to the second and third year, this COVID, because what we have done is this: we have actually tried to group together the practical courses and the lab sessions towards perhaps having all of them within 1 or 2 semesters or 1.5 semesters. So in that case, we are now putting in all the theoretical classes first. And there were a few gaps whereby the lockdown was lifted. And we quickly planned so that the students can come in and do their lab and, the hands-on activities then. So these are the moments that we look forward to. And again, you also know that there's this restriction of crossing states. So that is also an issue. I tell you, if only you can see under the scarf, it is all bald there. There's no hair at all, because we have to think of, it's not white hair anymore. It is no hair already, because there are a lot of things. But I'm very thankful because we have a very good team. And at the national level, I'm sure MQA has helped us a lot as well, because they have allowed for us to be more flexible. And we are also negotiating with the professional bodies because again, our university is 90% technology and engineering. So we do still have to discuss with the professional bodies as to what is allowable, what is the percentage allowed for the students to not go hands-on and things like that. Even our industrial training. So we have to really discuss with the industries, how do they take care of our students when they're there. And we even resorted to opening up some of our offices so that the students can come in and do their industrial training within campus and things like that. So we are trying to, I do not know, we are trying to cope with it. Of course, we want to produce the best graduates and students who are technical, students who are who will be able to utilize their skills and things. But again, we are also bound by the rules and regulations, especially being a public university. But we try. That's how we have done it so far. This is how we have done it. We have tried to group the labs and the hands-on classes together into 1.5 semester.
And Dr. Singh, from the perspective of MAPCO, what is necessary in the next period in terms of investments in universities, from universities themselves, but also from government? Are there any things that you believe are going to be very important in the next period?
Yeah, I think there's got to be continuous investment in education technologies, especially simulation-based software and technologies and infrastructure, so that you're always prepared for any future disruptions, but also taking Prof. Raha's term of the next norm and the new norm. I mean, this generation of kids actually do expect some flexibility, just as it was enumerated by Prof. Moritz just now, that they have provided the flexibility on being student-centric, letting the students choose as to how they want to learn rather than telling them how they should learn. And I think we've got to be prepared for that, and that's where a lot of investment will have to go in. On the people side, there's got to be a lot of unlearning and relearning from the staff perspective. And I think we need to have infrastructure in place in terms of resources to be able to do that. And going forward, there should be a fundamental shift in our approach towards engaging with students. And that's the question you actually just put on to Prof. Raha as well, as to how we can keep them engaged, how we can keep them participating in online sessions, a participatory approach rather than just a one-way flow. Talent management and development is become even more important right now, because it's not the traditional mode anymore, and also the ecosystem has got to be there in place to provide the level of flexibility that I'm talking about. And this is where Prof. Satta's leadership is very important, because things have changed and they will continue to change. And I think what was inevitable in time to come has actually been accelerated. It has appeared in front of us much faster than it would have otherwise been had appeared later period. But in Malaysia, I think there was mentioned just now that 60% of Malaysian students are in the private sector. I think it's also important to recognize not just that 60% of the students, or 50 to 60%, are in the private sector as students, but it also means that the private sector is generating more than 50% of the talent needs of this country. So it is not a sector that should be ignored or not attended to. So this year, in particular, we've been doing it for 20 years right now. MAPCO has been putting in budget proposals. We are also appealing to the government to provide certain incentives to the private sector to be able to support new technologies, and not only in support of Industry 4.0, but also new technologies from the teaching and learning perspective. So that's what MEPCO is working very hard on right now, and it has been engaging with government. We've just had sessions on a number of occasions with ministry officials, including one Mr. Chairing recently, in putting forward certain proposals that we can move forward and contribute to talent development in a more meaningful way. Because at the end of the day, what we want is for the good of the nation, the good of that we play a meaningful role in economic development of the country. No economy can grow without the right talent being in place. That's what we wish.
Thank you. And Prof. van der Rooyen, what are your dreams of what should change in the next period in higher education in the world?
Yeah, I think the commitment to innovation is the key thing. So we heard the presentation about quality assurance, and we have seen how quality assurance have gone from control to engagement and enhancement, but it hasn't gone into stimulation yet in most countries. And when I say stimulation, I mean that being innovative as a higher education provider becomes a requirement, not something which is tolerated or not discouraged, as in some quality assurance systems still happens. But actually it says, no, we expect higher education institutions to continuously look for ways to innovate. And one of the things COVID has shown us is the importance. And I think, the point made by my colleague from the technical university where, the QA was more flexible to allow you to do things. Actually, in some ways, that is the wrong way around. It should be the quality assurance agency which should stimulate you to quickly react and adapt, etc. And that's really what I hope will happen, is an embracement of innovation, globalization and innovation, which are the two key areas for higher education to prosper. And that's really looking forward rather than looking backwards. And this is what I'm passionate to see happening, not just in Malaysia, but everywhere. The other point, by the way, made about students wanting to come back to campus, I want to say something about that as well, because I fully understand that. I'm not saying, just do everything online. As I said, give students a choice, and most students really want to be on campus, not just to be listening to a professor, but teaching in a classroom is only 20% of the learning experience. It's actually also meeting each other over a cup of coffee, having a chat and so on. Look at myself, right? Here I am talking to you virtually. I could be in KL, right? I could have tonight having a nice dinner with you, Sipan, right? Wouldn't that be much more fun than, right? This is great, but I missed a lot of that experience. I have been coming to Sunway since 1998. I really miss not being on the campus again and having a nice swim in a beautiful swimming pool next door to the campus in KL, right? I've been teaching at UUM as acting professor, and it's not about giving a lecture there. It is actually afterwards having a meal with your colleagues, afterwards having a chat with the students over a cup of coffee, where you as a professor, where me as a professor learned a lot from, right? And so I'm absolutely with everybody that the campus experience, it's not just about the classroom. We can do something about the classroom, but what do we do with all the other things? The social experience, the social learning experience, not just the experiential learning, but also the social learning which the campuses facilitate. How do we replace that? Is how the services function as well. For instance, in Germany, my German university now, not only the professors are very often also avatar, we do that as well, but also in the services, we have a lot of avatars, so students can come to the virtual campus and have a meeting with someone in services virtually, because, hey, this is also affected by COVID. It's not just the classroom. A university is much more than teaching in a classroom. So all that innovation, which really should be stimulated by quality assurance, They should insist in universities continuously thinking, how can you be more innovative? How can you be more future-proof? How can you be more prepared for the big changes which hit us all the time, not just COVID, is something which I would be desperate to see happening around the globe in all the national systems.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to switch gears a little bit, and because after all, this is also about ranking. So has this period changed your mind about rankings in general, Pravira? You had, experience from the perspective of the ministry about rankings, and we've already mentioned that employability is very important, but this specific period of COVID, with all the lockdowns and the ways in which universities have had to change, should that also have consequences for rankings?
Thank you for the question. That's the killer question that I was expecting, Right. I totally agree with my colleagues just now that development of talent is very, very important, because we have to make sure that our students are ready for the job market, or even for them to be job creators and entrepreneurs in the future. And this is something that I'm sure not only in UTM, but also with my other colleagues in the other universities, we are really, really working hard to prepare our students for their future endeavors, whatever it may be. Maybe just to share this data, that actually our national average for graduate employability is about 86% this year. For the MTONs, the 4 technical universities, the graduate employability record is about 90%, 93% above. So I think that says a lot about how skilled workers are actually perhaps the backbone also of the country's industry. Now, going back to your question, I guess first I must mention that the government, the Malaysian government, has always been very supportive of research and development, whereby our GERD, although not as high as the other developed countries, but it was at 1.04% in 2018. And I think we touched about 1.13% in 2020. So that tells a lot. And a lot of discussions go on. I mean, I think there's, just to share, I think in Malaysia, there's this love-hate relationship with ranking. Okay, this love-hate relationship with ranking. On the one hand, everybody, said that the ranking is useless. Why do we bother to go into ranking? And, but then on the other hand, everybody gets very, very excited when the rankings are released, and people will start asking, so how does your university, how do you do in the rankings and things like that? So I think in a way, I feel that, having had to take care of ranking and the research universities and also the grants and things like that, when I was with the ministry, I see there are advantages and disadvantages of ranking. The first, perhaps the advantages is that you can use it as an early shortlisting tool, where you can, this is one way where universities in countries like Malaysia can be visible in the global market, if you want to call it, for attracting international students and also professionals. And this is a way to compare universities, perhaps. One of the advantages that you can see, UM is now in the top 100 in the world, as opposed to maybe UTM, who is still in the top 800 in the world. And then, of course, you can check. It can be a quick reputation check, whereby whether if you're ranked in a certain ranking system, which is quite reputable. So that means your university is quite reputable. Now, the disadvantages maybe most of the rankings that are available are really, really looking at research performances. I think as mentioned by Mandy just now, it is very focused, the QS itself, and then also some of the methodology may be flawed. I'm not saying that everything is flawed, but some, for example, the reputation survey. So if you put forward Harvard as opposed to University Technical Malaysia Melaka, we may be, one of the best university here. Sorry, not really the best, but But if you compare to that reputation, so it is a disadvantage to some of the younger universities. And some of these rankings do not measure other crucial factors. So hence, that's why now we have the 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 impact ranking, looking at the SDG, the UI green metric, which looks at sustainability. Even we have now the AppliedHE ranking that looks at other things. So whether with COVID, we want to still look at ranking, or do we want to now forget about it in total? I think we have to go back to, I think possibly 2015, when the Higher Education Ministry decided that, hey, let's go for ranking, be brave. And that one, I think it's the minister then, that was Datuk Sri Idris Yusof. I feel that he was a very brave man and daring enough to say, let's go for it. So that's when we said by 2025, there should be 2 universities, Malaysian universities, in the top 100 in US ranking at that time. So now, and today we have 1 university in the top 100, that is and 4 at least universities that are the research universities that are already in the top 200 in QS ranking. So I think whether you want to drop it off totally, or you feel that, personally, I feel that ranking may be still important for universities in countries like Malaysia and maybe other parts of the world, just so that we are a little bit visible, and also just that we would attract perhaps the best minds of the global global professionals to come, even the industries perhaps to come and say that, hey, look, we have the brain here in our country, in our that are in our institution of higher learnings. So it is not one over the other. Even in our university, in UTM, University Technical Malaysia Malacca, we feel that there should be a balance. We do want to produce graduates who are holistic, adaptive. We have and we want our graduates to be the best choice, the first choice for employers, and even the best choice for becoming husbands, and also so it's but at the same time we feel that we need to be visible, especially for young universities. So I think there must be a balance. I will not say that we will totally but again, this is my personal feeling, because I think ranking is a way where you can make yourself visible, your country visible, to tell people that, hey, look, we have this experts here and things like that. That's my take for it, Prof.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that as you mentioned, some of the current rankings put a lot of stock in reputation, and my bias is actually that if you want to have a criteria for that, it's much better to ask the students, and to ask the students about their experience, and to ask the students about employability, than rely on opinions of staff about other universities. Because my experience is literally that I have no idea of the quality of education in another university. I wouldn't know. I've never sat in the classroom, etc., of that other university, so how would I know? And still, when you fill out a form like that, you give an opinion on the quality of education. Impossible. Yeah. So I think it's much better for the students to do that.
Yeah. But again, it's balancing out, balancing
yep.
that you produce, the quality of teaching and learning, the research quality, and hopefully all that will actually work on you getting ranked, the right, the right ranking.
Yeah, no, and in the end, yes, they're all not good, but they're all important. And they are important because they're the only way in which students can judge. So we better make sure that we provide them with the right criteria on which they can choose, because students particularly, they use them to choose, and so they have to know about the experience in that university, they have to know about the employability and so on. That's the important part. Before I start talking too much, I will be going to one of my next questions, and maybe I can ask. Oh yeah, we also had some questions from the audience for Dr. Shatar. And one of the questions was, how can MQA and how can the ministry, help to minimize the impact of the COVID pandemic on, graduate unemployability? Last year, of course, many of the graduates have not been able to find jobs. This year, it's the same. Is there anything that you think government could do to improve that?
Okay, thank you, Prof, for the question. And as what I have been saying in my presentation, when we are talking about graduate employability, it's not purely based on the higher education institution per se. So there are so many factors that contributed to that. As far as MQA is concerned, what we have done for the last few months is giving a flexibility to the universities to make some adjustments so that the student can be able to finish the program and course during the time period of time. That's number one. And number two, we are hoping also, we are encouraging the higher education institution to introduce value-added courses to the program. For example, the one that I've been saying for the last few months, to encourage students to speak more than 3 languages. Of course, nowadays speaking Malay, English is just like so history and so yesterday. So they need to speak more than 3, 4, 5, whatever, assuming if we Malaysian produce students who can speak 5 languages, even though we do not have the job here in this country, we can easily send them to other parts of the world. If they can speak Mandarin, we can easily send them to China. If they can speak Arabic, we send to the Middle East. Or if they speak Spanish, we can send to Europe and also to South America, things like that. So those are the things. We cannot do much about education because it's so limited, but that's why I was saying in my presentation, as higher education institution, they must think ahead, think 10, 5, 15 years, and also they must be a leader. So surprisingly sad to hear when we are talking about, you need to encourage your students to speak more than 5, 3 languages, and they say, why we have to do that? Nobody do it. We haven't seen anybody do it. So they want to be, the mentality to be followers still there. So that's why I said, to be successful, be a leaders. And again, as I said, that's why I really appreciate what Mandy was, introducing to us. Come up with something new so that people will look at us, not we follow that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Datuk Singh, international students, have been very important for a large number of the higher education institutions, of course, specifically also for private institutions. How do we make sure that we remain an attractive destination also following the pandemic?
Okay, this is an interesting topic because I think the landscape has changed, Prof, changed quite drastically. It will never be the same. I'll tell you why. Everybody has got used to an alternative mode of study right now. Before COVID happened, Malaysia was very attractive to those from emerging economies who could afford come here because living cost was lower, and of course the fees was cheaper, and at the same time they had access to international education. Through a lot of arrangements that most universities here have, which is an extension of the traditional 3.0s and traditional training courses. So it was attractive in that way. So there was a limited budget. Let's hypothetically say that these were groups that could afford, let's say, 50,000 ringgit a year, and it was not possible within that budget to go to the traditional destinations like UK, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, and US. But right now, within that budget, you could actually do an online degree with a very well-established university anywhere in the world. So because living cost is no longer factored in during this time. Of course, it's not comparing apple to apple, but those with limited budget, now having got used to online education, the world is open to them. And I also see, and I have been watching out, that many universities in Australia, particularly, are slashing their fees for the online mode. So they'll become even more attractive to students from the emerging economies. But at the same time, we also have large groupings of students who are attracted to Malaysia because they wanted the experience of being here. It's seen as an exotic destination, an interesting place to be in, a lot of good food, and it's a stone's throw away from other destinations like Singapore, Indonesia, Ireland, and they could have holidays over the weekend and so forth. So there were many other reasons. Now, to preserve that, we have to continue strongly branding ourselves. Sometime in the middle of last year, we rebranded ourselves to say that we have done so well out of COVID, it's a safe destination. But of course, that did not last long. And there was a time when we were one of the safest countries on the planet as far as COVID is concerned, but we've lost that. So we've got to now find new innovative ways of doing things. So branding is one. Number two, we also need to compete with other destinations that allow foreign work and study, which we don't. And so we have been putting proposals into government. The first time we did that was 5 years ago, and we worked through, and it was approved. But unfortunately, in 2018, the government changed, and that approved scheme actually fell apart, and they said that we got to relook at it. But right now, it's gaining momentum, but it may not be the right time to push it right now because everybody is looking at the employability of local labor that might be who might have lost their jobs. So, but nevertheless, that would be one big thing. And also post-study visas. I mean, again, this is something that may not resonate well with government right now, but it is all the type of advantages other countries provide for instance that we need to be able to embrace and actually do better. Finally, we have roughly about a footprint, an international footprint of students from about 130 countries. We've not been able to address a number of other countries, like for example in Latin America, which has been high growth in Australia. Again, for the very reasons that these are places from which students come with extremely limited budgets and are not able to sustain themselves without working while studying. So if we are able to put that scheme through and we achieve that, we will have immediate access to another 40 countries where traditionally they will come and work in studies. I mean, for example, Nepal. I mean, Nepal is in a big growth area for Australia, not for us, because Australia recognizes they have enough money for one semester, but not for two, and while they work and study, they are able to sustain themselves, but we're not able to bring them in because we don't have that. But by and large, I'm going back to solidifying our online structure because that will be a new growth area. We should not just go back to traditional modes because we'll also be competing with universities offering online education from across the world because they're all getting used to it. And there will be newfound markets overseas which expect online education without physically being present.
Yes, no, I agree with most what you say. I'm a little bit more optimistic about students coming to campus because I think that for many studies, it will be required to come to campus for practicals and so on. So that's, that's the good side. But yes, there are studies that can relatively easily be done online, and there we also have to compete, absolutely. And yes, the visa, work visa, is for any country. You know, that's more or less controlling how many international students will come. If you're open, many will come. If you're closed, it will be much less. So that's a very you know, a very powerful way of increasing or decreasing, as the US has seen, the number of international students coming. Professor Van Rooyen, yeah, I have a question here. You know, how similar or dissimilar are the challenges in Europe? Now, I know that you are global, but still you are working mostly in Europe now. If you look at the situation in Europe, also in terms of international students, perhaps you can say a little bit about Brexit and the consequences of that. What's the situation there?
Yeah, that's a couple of questions in one go.
Yep.
So obviously the biggest challenge with COVID at the moment is that the embassies are not functioning completely, and therefore there is delays in study visa applications. And again, we have been facilitating that by allowing students to first start online, and then as soon as their visa comes through, they can transfer to campus, because I fully agree with you that ultimately that's what students want. They want to be on campus, but not only they want to be on campus, they also want to get a job, right? They want to get a job while they're studying, and they want to get a job afterwards. So the key element there is how likely is it that you get a job after you graduate. Now, most of the European countries, of course, are in a demographic situation, whereby there are less young people. And there is a big demand for highly skilled, talented young people from around the world. So a country like Germany, the country, the ministry, the government is very open and saying, we want really well-skilled, well-educated people to come to Germany and stay there, because we need young people there. Brexit, of course, the UK is now no longer able to tap in the same way on the European market. Therefore, the pressure on the UK government to become much more flexible in terms of work permits and to allow students to stay on after graduation is increasing, and we see the positive benefit effects of that. So the UK, you know, in some ways, Brexit has had a positive impact there, in the sense that the UK government has to change the previous policy of discouraging students to stay in country after graduation. But overall, in Europe, the message is very clear. Yes, you come and study there, but also if you want to stay there for some time, that's great. Now, I fully appreciate that can be perceived as a brain drain, but my experience is that students come and work there, but then they also quickly often go back again, or not. But definitely the way the global economy works is that students aren't really locked up in a country anymore. They are free to go, and they should take advantage of that. And if it's done well, I can remember in the 1990s when a lot of Chinese students went to study abroad. The criticism was there as well. We lose all these talented people, and the argument in China was actually it's not the problem of the students, it's the problem that students don't want to come back. So China had to address its own economic situation to make sure that it was really attractive for talented students to stay in China and to work there. And that's really what is happening. So employment and education, I completely agree with Dr. Shatta, are actually very, very closely linked together. I fully appreciate the point made that it's not just about getting the knowledge. That's an old-fashioned way of thinking about education, and quite rightly the point was also made by Professor Singhi that knowledge you can actually get online as well in a large extent, but education is much more also about the skills. It is about the social skills. It's about learning to work in teams. It's working in intercultural teams, which gives you an advantage in that international career. It is about that mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset, which you mentioned earlier, Sipan, which is absolutely crucial to be successful. It is about self-leadership. And those are the things you don't learn in a classroom. Those are the things you learn through experiential learning. And I think one of the big changes higher education has to make is to embrace the fact that education isn't just about getting the knowledge in the classroom, but actually really develop as a successful human being. That will get you not only employment, but that will get you various forms of employment in the future. It makes you future-proof in your employment. And those are the things which, by the way, are not always that well ranked, measured in rankings and so on, which should be measured, because that's really what, for me, defines the quality of education. And I also fully appreciate that linguistical skills, learning different languages, is highly underrated, because obviously when I say you're welcome to come and work in France or in Germany or wherever, yes, you can work in Germany without knowing a word of German. But the truth is, if you do know some German, you will have a much better position in the job market. So I absolutely agree with that comment as well. I mean, we cannot do enough to stimulate learning different languages as well as part of that skill package in order to position yourself in that labor market. The future is bright for our young graduates, but we do need to prepare them in a different way than the way we prepared them in the 20th and the 19th century.
Yes, you remember the good old days where we had to learn in the Netherlands Dutch, German, English, and French because those were our important neighbor countries. And yeah, there's much to say for that. I'd like to go to one other question and to all of the panelists, actually. So we are all quite aware that the pandemic, but likewise climate change is not just happening. It is because we as humans are encroaching on the planet. You know, we have been misusing the planet, and in turn, we get some of these problems. Now, how important is it to have this in our education programs? Should all our students learn about this? Should we be talking to them about this? And maybe I'll go my usual circle and start with Datu Gira.
Yes, very. I think the question is, I would say probably is appropriate, most appropriate question for the evening, because apart from other things that we have to share with our students, ethics and how to learn another language and how to to upskill yourself, reskill and things like that. To be aware of the environment is something that is very, very crucial. I think it is basically the air that we breathe and the water that we drink. So I am sure now this should not really be at the level of the higher education. The sharing and the understanding of this should start with the schools or even with the kindies, where the appreciation of the environment, how to save energy, how to make sure that you do not throw rubbish and plastic bottles into the drains and things like that. I feel that the sharing of the effects of if there's a sudden breakdown of our environment should start very early. So it has to be done even at the kindergarten. I think we should look at how the Japanese teach their children to be very aware of the importance of environment and things like that. So in that sense, I mean at the higher education level, of course, we can imbue the knowledge, and we can share, we can practice things. But again, to me it should be done very early. So I really hope that this can be passed on to the Ministry of Education, and it should be embedded into the curriculum for the little kiddies to start with. Yeah. Thank you. I mean,
Thank you.
it's a very important, important issue, and we should start early on it.
Yep. Datuk Singh, same subject.
Yeah, I totally agree with Prof. Raha, but it should start from the beginning. It should start from schools. It should also be something that's propagated in every home. And of course, at university level, we should reinforce certain principles that may not have been understood when they were younger. And I also believe that universities should actually practice what they preach. And also construct campuses along the lines that they are trying to propagate in terms of values. And the values must also be upheld by all staff. For example, in my own institution, we have a no wastage policy that cuts across everything we do in any way we think. I mean, no wastage also means not having too many staff, ensuring productivity, ensuring our physical resources are also properly used, ensuring that equipment is fully amortized before they hit the grave, and we also cannibalize equipment for spare parts that they use further. So there are lots of practices within the campus. In the cafeteria, we also ensure that people don't waste food and so forth. So it actually cuts across in everything we do and anything we do, conserving power. And the design of our campus is such that it has wind tunnels as part of its design, it was elevated also to achieve coolness and so forth. So it cuts across everything we do, and I think it's important to practice what we want others to adopt. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Shatta, how would MQA look at introducing elements of sustainable development goals, planetary health into curricula for different studies?
Okay, thank you, Prof. As I said earlier, I mean, like all the higher education institutions, they must be proactive instead of reactive, and therefore they need to think 10, 15 years ahead. So whatever the thing that's necessary using the VUCA concept, if that one need to be introduced, they have to be introduced. So need to be leaders at this particular time. Stop for become the followers. So that's my quick answer for that one.
Excellent. Thank you. And Maurits, what are you doing in your university system in this respect?
Yes, I mean, first of all, our universities are committed to values. I think this is the most important thing, and I'll probably give you a concrete example, but I'll give an example from my previous university, which you might remember. Sigmund, I was in CEO and rector of an institution called Nijrode University in the Netherlands. And Nijrode is a leadership and entrepreneurship university, and I made the point there that we always say we are in favor of leadership and entrepreneurship, but actually much of the leadership and entrepreneurship isn't by definition good. It might be skillful, but from a value point of view, leadership is not by definition good, and entrepreneurship is not by definition good. What makes it good is a sense of responsibility. And I introduced there what I call the trinity of leadership, entrepreneurship, and stewardship. And what I meant with stewardship is a bit broader than sustainability, is actually a sense of responsibility to other people, to next generations, and therefore also to the environment. And that it makes the difference between good leadership and good entrepreneurship and bad leadership and bad entrepreneurship, because the world has a lot of examples of leadership and entrepreneurship driven by vanity and by greed. And if we produce graduates who actually embrace leadership and entrepreneurship because of greed and vanity, we got a problem. So I think as educational institutions, we have a responsibility to embrace values. It's not something added on. It is actually the very core of what education is about. And now the next question is, of course, how do you do it? And this is where it is so great to be a president of a university, because you do not need to give the answer. You only need to ask the question, right? And you ask the question to the professors and say, and this is what I did. And I said, professors, how do you implement the trinity of leadership, entrepreneurship, and stewardship in your teaching? And it's very interesting how positively your colleagues react to that. They actually prefer that than to get the answer, because now they are to be using their creativity, their intelligence. And I was very impressed how, for instance, our accountants, which I didn't always see as the most creative colleagues in my university, how, for instance, accountants came up with the concept of robust accountancy, etc. So you should not underestimate the ability of your colleagues to actually define what it means in education. But it is at the very core of education. If we can't actually build it on values, we're making a big mistake in our education, and we produce people who actually use their knowledge, skills, and standing in the wrong way in society.
Thank you. I think we've just passed through 5 o'clock, and I'm looking at Mandy. We have to stop, right?
Yes, it's Peter. Peter is coming on next.
Yeah, Peter, where is he coming back?
Yes, he is.
Yes, there he is.
Sorry.
You fell asleep. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Siebrand Popelman, the president of Sunway University, for all your comments and also all the for leading the discussion, and also all the panelists. It's my pleasure now to present a little bit more about the ranking and rating system of AppliedHE that Mandy already talked about, and which fits wonderfully well with the panel discussion. We didn't completely plan it this way, but it came out very, very well. So we're very pleased with that. So I will try and share my screen, and then we will do that. And my presentation should last about 20 minutes. So members of the audience, please stick with me. I know we've been at this for a little while, but I really appreciate it.
Peter, yes. Can I interrupt?
Yes, please.
Peter, I have to leave this session because I've got another meeting being chaired by the Secretary General of the Ministry, 5 o'clock.
Okay. We will miss you, but of course, if you have to go, you have to go.
I'm really sorry about that, but this was already pre-arranged.
And on behalf of the private universities, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me see if yes. So essentially, if we're talking about rankings and ratings, we ask ourselves the question, what makes a university a good university? And of course, from a student perspective, a student has questions such as, what knowledge and skills will I gain? Will it be online, on campus, hybrids? Will I get a job? Will I create a job? Will I be able to contribute to sustainability and community? Will it be international and in English? And what about lifelong learning? And essentially, these are some of the student questions that we try to answer with our ranking and rating products. Now, at the boardroom of the university, there is the question, which evaluation tool really fits with the values that we hold as an institution? And so we essentially answer that in 2 ways. We have a ranking and we have a rating. And of course, they're slightly different. Ranking, there can only be one winner. And with a rating, it's a more holistic evaluation in which we can recognize the excellence of many different institutions. So many pupils, let's say, can get an A+. I'll first briefly talk about the rankings that AppliedHE has. As Mandy already mentioned, we have Rankometer, which is essentially rankings remixed. We've combined other important and influential rankings into one benchmark. And now we're looking at the own AppliedHE private university ranking. And the first one will be the private university ranking for ASEAN, which is essentially rankings redefined. Now, Rankometer, as Mandy mentioned, was a combination of 5 different influential world university rankings, which we managed to combine and launch. So this is essentially the start of our track record in producing rankings. But the private university ranking project that we're embarking on now is much more ambitious. The ranking criteria that we mainly want to look at AppliedHE is teaching and learning, employability, research, community outreach, internationalization, and then institutional reputation, and more or less in that order of importance. But as we rank different types of universities, for example, private versus public, or universities in ASEAN versus universities in other parts of Asia or other parts of the world, we will be changing the weighting, the criteria of the weighting criteria. So maybe putting more of an emphasis on research for public universities, more of an emphasis on teaching and learnings for perhaps private universities and so on. And we may add some additional criteria that are particularly relevant to that specific country or set of institutions that we are trying to rank. Now, the ranking data that we use, first we use student surveys. So students are asked to respond to online surveys, which are GDPR and PDP compliant, but where we also always try to verify who is completing the survey. So students are actually asked to give us some personal information so that we can verify that a real student is responding to the survey, so that we have that trust and that confidence in measuring it. Second, we look at bibliometrics, but whereas many rankings use Scopus, we use Google Scholar. And Google Scholar is the world's largest database of bibliometric scientometric papers that exists. So it's a much broader database. And so we use all of that to evaluate it. And we think that's more appropriate, especially for universities in a region like ASEAN. The third part is that we also request institutional data, but we are the first ranking to have an interval sampling audit, which means that every university that submits data to us, we can basically call them back and ask them for additional evidence, additional data to back up whatever claim that they have made. So in that sense, we try to improve in all three of those core areas, having different ranking data that we feel is more appropriate. Now, this is especially for private universities in the ASEAN region. Why should you join this ranking? Because it is a voluntary ranking, because we need your help to run, for example, the student surveys and to provide us with the institutional data. So the first reason that you should join the ranking is because the criteria and the weightings are more relevant to your types of institutions. And in a few weeks' time, we will reveal the definitive ranking criteria and weightings. It's also an opportunity for peer benchmarking to see how you are doing compared to the other institutions in the country. And as the saying often goes, if you are ranked, you exist. It's a bit mean to say, but at least people know of you. They know that you exist. They know that you are around. And a final reason is that there is no charge for taking part in the rankings. So that's another reason. If you say there's budget constraints, that's not an excuse in this case. Now, moving on to the ratings. AppliedHE currently has 3 ratings products. We have the Job Ready rating, which is a kind of 360-degree survey of learning and employability based on institutional data, but also on student, alumni, and faculty surveys, making it a very unique, very all-round rating system. We have the English Ready rating, which looks at English as a medium of instruction. And this is especially relevant for non-English speaking countries, for perhaps Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, not so much for Malaysia, where English is the main medium of instruction of programs here, although we would be happy to work with a Malaysian institution to do the rating. And then finally, Online Ready is to have world-class online learning and to evaluate that. Now, these are some of our newly rated institutions. So we've slowly been making progress in the past year or so. So we're very happy to have had a mix of countries also a mix of research intensive and more teaching focused institutions from around the Asia region. Now, the job ready rating, to put it very briefly, perhaps three main characteristics. It's very relevant because it focuses on career, learning, community, and industry collaboration. The three core attributes that perhaps you should have if you want to deliver education that is ready for entering the job market. It's very versatile. This rating system can be applied to a vocational diploma all the way to a postgraduate degree. So it's not restricted in its application. And it's interdisciplinary. We can evaluate the 22 employment clusters. As mentioned. Now, the rating criteria, we look at outcomes, we look at delivery, and we look at institution. And for each one of these pillars, we have about 4 areas where we're focused on. So for outcomes, we look at graduate competence, employability, remuneration, and entrepreneurship. For delivery, we look at teaching and learning, the faculty profile. For example, we see if faculty have a teaching qualification. We look at industry exposure by the students and at intercultural competence, because we recognize international experience is one thing, but whether you actually gain the intercultural competence skills is another one. We also look at stakeholder perception, what your local stakeholders think about you, inclusiveness and access, applied research and community engagement. And as you see on the side of this table, there's a number of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially quality of education, decent work and economic growth, reduced inequalities, industry, innovation and infrastructure, and so on, which closely overlap with many of the job ready ratings. So the goal of the rating is, as the name says, whether the graduates are job ready, but that fits within a broader context of, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the data that we use is a student survey, a faculty survey, an alumni survey, which is combined with an employer survey, and of course, institutional data. So it's a combination giving us that view. These are, again, the 22 employment clusters. And as you can see, it basically covers every major employment area. So as long as you have at least 200 students enrolled in any of these employment clusters, we have enough of a sample size for our surveys to offer you with a reliable rating. Now, you may be wondering, okay, come again, exactly what is the difference between the ranking and the rating system, and why should I pick one over the other? Well, one simple reason is that the job ready rating is applicable to all institutions. Any institution can do it. So we're now focusing on private universities. So public universities who are very interested in AppliedHE, they may opt to do the job ready rating right away. But basically, the private ranking tells you what your institution's more or less global standing is, whatever the globe of institutions that we're looking at. Whereas the rating looks primarily at what your local stakeholders think of you, how they perceive you. So they're very complementary in that sense. And they're also overlapping to an extent. So we encourage institutions to do both. Now, if you compare them both, teaching and learning is part of the ranking criteria, but it's fleshed out better in the rating. And the same thing with employability. It is treated more broadly in the rating, also graduate competence, remuneration, entrepreneurship. So rankings, because of their nature, we can only scratch the surface of an institution. But with a rating, we can really go deep and really get a deep understanding of what the institution is all about. Now, the English Ready rating, I will quickly skip over because of the relevance for Malaysia. It's a bit less, but I will talk about the online Ready rating and also mention the discussion. This was initially not in our product pipeline, but because of the pandemic and the huge focus on online learning, we've added it now. And very importantly, I think it's the idea that online learning isn't necessarily second best. In fact, it can be better than on-campus learning, especially if you think of on-campus learning as huge lecture series with maybe 300, 400 students, then the online channel is much preferred. So the online ready rating can be used as a benchmarking tool to see where you stand globally. Are you kind of at the global cutting edge? As a recruitment tool, especially when you want to target non-traditional student groups, for instance, lifelong learning or international outside of your national market where your brand might be known. And also stakeholder insights to help you understand student and faculty perspectives on the online learning that you're currently offering. Now, the rating criteria for online ready are course delivery, whether it's interactive, materials, the quality. We look at learning support, whether you provide coaching, counseling, tech support for your students. We look at the examination aspect, whether video proctoring, credit transfers, and so on are there, so that you really get an equivalent to what you would have gotten on campus as credible. And also faculty, whether faculty are properly trained, their qualifications, and also their skills or support in terms of instructional design. Because without proper instructional design, you can't really take advantage of online learning. Now, looking at rating data for the online ready survey, we have a student survey and a faculty survey, and also institutional data. So this is a little bit of the, let's call it the way that our ratings work, but we find it's very, very valuable to have a good sample of students and faculty respond to surveys together with data by the institution, so that you don't come at any question from just one angle, but you come at it from at least 3 angles, and you really can have a good understanding of the institution, making the rating much, much more reliable. Now, we have a very streamlined rating process. Typically, it starts with institutional data submission and survey setup. That can take anywhere from about 2 weeks. Then we have a survey period, typically takes about 4 weeks. Then we produce the preliminary report while we do an audit. If we don't see anything that is unusual, an audit will take about 2 weeks. And then we produce the final report. And then you as an institution have 1 month to decide whether or not to publish. So there is never a risk. You can do the rating. You can see what the outcomes are. If you're not satisfied with the outcomes, you can always decide to re-rate later and withhold publication of the rating. So you are fully in control of the rating process from start to finish, and it can be executed relatively fast. I would say this is an industry-leading speed of doing the kind of in-depth rating that we do of its kind. So we're very proud of that we can execute it very fast. Now, if you want to get a feeling for a rating and how that whole process works, I mean, the survey part of it is the core of the rating process. You can have a look at our demo surveys, right? We're not hiding anything. You can have a look, see how we ask the questions, see how the structure works. So these are the links for you to try, and we will also, of course, send these slides to you after this presentation, so you can have an idea of really what the core surveys are about, and then just try them out, play around. But in many ways, doing a rating with AppliedHE is just the beginning. We don't think it's about, we do the rating, we give you a rating outcome, and then we walk off. We think if we do a rating properly, it can give you so much more. It's often said that data is the new gold, and we try and live by that perspective when we do our ratings as well. When we do our ratings, we do actually a huge data collection exercise. So the report that we produce for you, you can see the performance of your institution for each specific indicator, and you can benchmark yourself against peer groups. And for some institutions, that is even more interesting than merely to have the rating badge and so on. They want to see how they're doing compared to international peers. In terms of stakeholder perception of respondents, that can be very valuable. This is a bit cultural. In some countries, students and faculty are very willing to reply to a survey that the university management itself does. But in other countries, they're much more comfortable if a third party like AppliedHE is doing the survey. So it gives you that perspective. And finally, we can provide you with anonymized raw data if you want to do further internal analysis. So we really, yes, it's a rating exercise, but it's also an opportunity to gather data about your institution and really have that data to inform your decision making and see where you stand. In terms of promotional materials, of course, you get a badge, you get a certificate. We have a wonderful profile for your institution on AppliedHE.com. We do a press release, which is indexed by Google News, and we also have a rating report. Now, that rating report in principle is confidential, but you can pick kind of the pearls out of it, the real areas where your institution performs well, and use that in your promotion, in your storytelling, to explain to the world how fantastic your institution is doing. So we give you a whole battery of promotional materials that you really can maximize the value of doing the rating exercise. And finally, I share with you my contact details. So please be in touch if you have questions. And of course, we will be emailing you about that as well. And that really is my presentation. And I think we're fairly on time. So now it's my pleasure to invite Professor Elizabeth Lee, once again, the CEO of the Senway Education Group in Malaysia, for her closing comments. Oh. Elizabeth, you're muted.
Thank you very much, Peter. Yes, I was trying very hard to keep quiet during that robust session that we had earlier on. And thank you again to everyone for attending today's special webinar where we help Mandy launch her Asian-led global reach AppliedHE Xchange in Malaysia. I truly loved the candid sharing by our distinguished lineup of speakers and also the robust side discussion. I kept being, I was trying to juggle between the panelists and what they were saying, and also all the robust discussion on the side. That has been generated in the chat room by our participants who joined us from all over the world, I noticed, not just educationists, but parents, entrepreneurs, businessmen, and students as well. While Prof. Shatta is hoping that we can make some kind of prediction, the pandemic crystal ball, I think, is still indeed rather cloudy. And as Prof. Moritz shared, it's probably flexibility and variety which will win the day. I do agree with him. And I find it ironic and yet poignant that it is actually during this time of the new or next normal, as Prof. Raha calls it, that we are being introduced to this new way of rating and ranking that Peter just demonstrated to us. Whether you believe in rating or ranking, sometimes it depends on where we are on the rank, and hence we like it or we don't like it. But honestly speaking, it keeps us honest and on our toes, as education institutions. And that's at least one good thing, right? And whether students believe it or not, it's also a different question. I always wondered about that. But, well, Mandy, Peter, whether you guys are going to be the best in the world, the most applicable of all the ranking and rating, I hope that you are. And I truly wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Well, thank you everyone for your time today. I really hope you've enjoyed the presentations and panel discussions and find the information useful. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our host, Sunway University, especially the team under Professor Elizabeth Lee. They have worked very hard behind the scene to make this webinar possible. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you for helping us to launch in Malaysia. Big thanks also to our speakers and panelists for their sharing and knowledge, very insightful and thought-provoking indeed. And all this is possible because of you, the audience. Thank you for taking the time to join us from Malaysia and beyond. Although this marks the end of this webinar, I hope to see all of you soon online, of course, at our next webinar on alumni engagement and management next Tuesday, 10th August at 8 p.m. Singapore or Malaysia time. See you all soon. And thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Soon again.